Hey, what's going on, guys? What's happening, YouTube? You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels. Today is Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. We're going to be doing one of these videos where we kind of go through and cover a lot of the different business news, economic news, and things going on in the world. We got a lot of news about crypto. SBF was arrested. CZ of Binance may be brought up on money laundering charges. Starbucks has rolled out a reward system on Polygon. Let's see, Biden's facing pressure to drop charges against Assange. The EU has depleted their military stockpiles. We've learned that Americans don't want Trump or Biden to run in 2024. We're going to be talking about the greatest transfer of wealth ever from boomers to their millennial children. People not wanting to go home for the holidays. Going to be talking about the stock market a bit. Twitter files being released, the controversy over the libs of TikTok Shopify store, and a whole lot more. So we're going to be talking about all of that in today's video. Before we kick this off, I got a movie recommendation for you guys. I've been giving some movie and show recommendations in the past couple videos. Last night I watched Emily the Criminal on Netflix. It's got the girl from Parks and Rec who dated Andy, kind of the weirdo girl. I forget her name in real life. But she's in it. There seemed to be kind of a societal message behind the movie. She had like $70,000 worth of student loans. She was working as a 1099 caterer for a catering company, and she winds up hooking up with a credit card carding ring and kind of starts this life of crime. And it's kind of crazy how this, fairly innocent college girl, or college graduate girl, struggling to kind of find her way in adulthood, winds up getting started with this carding ring, and then kind of all the crazy misadventures she winds up getting into. It had kind of a crazy ending, not necessarily what you'd expect, not necessarily a happy ending, and then there was a kind of weird twist at the very end. But a really interesting movie. I thought it was pretty good. I think you guys may enjoy it. So let's start off with some of this crypto news. I'm going to be jumping around a little bit. SBF was arrested in the Bahamas. So you guys probably remember there was like he was coming, he wasn't coming. He was supposed to come to the U.S. on Wednesday. He was invited, or I guess summoned, by Maxine Waters, who wanted him to testify in front of Congress. She issued a statement, basically saying she's very disappointed in the U.S. government that they arrested him. Although he kept kind of flip-flopping on whether he was going to come to this hearing on Wednesday or not. But she said she's disappointed that we won't be able to hear from him. I believe Kevin O'Leary of the Shark Tank is going to be testifying. The new CEO of FTX is going to be testifying, and there is a chance that FTX could appear over Zoom or something like that. But SBF has been arrested. Will other people at FTX or Alameda wind up going down? Will Caroline wind up going down? Will SBF's parents wind up getting dragged into this? A lot of people suspect that his folks were kind of behind this. They're both Stanford professors. And he almost kind of seems too stupid to pull something like this off on his own. His dad is also like a bigwig kind of tax guy, who helped the IRS, kind of come up with regulations. So, we'll see if his folks wind up getting dragged into this as well. Let's see, we're getting kind of mixed messages from the Fed, the media, banks, economists. Isn't it weird how like one day, BlackRock's telling us prepare for a recession like you've never seen before. Jamie Dimon's telling us, oh my God, 2023 is going to be really ugly. We're hearing from CEOs across various industries, 2023 could be the year from hell. And then now today we're hearing that not if inflation comes down, but if inflation doesn't go up as much as we expect it to go up, all of a sudden it's this amazing news and markets are going to rally, and this may be the end of the bear market. We're expecting rates to not even peak until sometime in 2023. I think towards the end of 2023, maybe October of 2023 from what we're hearing. And that's not even that rates are going to start coming down, but that's when rates are going to peak. The last we heard about rates, wholesale, or I guess last we heard about prices and inflation, wholesale prices were up 0.3%, but because they were expecting them to be up like 0.6%, all of a sudden that's supposed to be like good news and everybody's supposed to be excited. Markets have become completely disconnected from reality. We've talked about this before. Markets don't move on whether a company had a good quarter, a bad quarter, there's a good outlook or a bad outlook for a company. It's all about what Jerome Powell's going to say. It's basically gambling. We do have the Fed meeting today. I'm going to try to release this video early. because after the Fed comes out with the rate hike and everything else, that's going to kind of be the big news, and it's going to kind of this video may be less relevant. We're expecting a 0.5% rate hike, although 0.75% isn't out of the realm of possibility, and I think we're going to see inflation go up, but maybe not as much as some people may have feared. I don't think that's good news, but it's being billed as being good news. We talked about the crypto stuff. So I guess Joe Biden is facing pressure both internally among his administration, from Americans and internationally to drop charges against Julian Assange. Merrick Garland has recently made some statements and put in some additional protections for journalists, saying that a healthy society, needs journalists and needs journalists to be protected. You guys may remember that Obama had dropped charges against Chelsea Manning for espionage. But meanwhile, Julian Assange still rots away. So we'll see if anything comes of that. We've learned that the EU has depleted military stockpiles supporting Ukraine. And if you guys are following or interested in the whole Russia-Ukraine saga, obviously there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's this kind of like blind support for Ukraine. And I found a good YouTube channel recently. I've only watched a couple of his videos, but there's a channel called Will 0am or Will OAM. He does a lot of interviews with these like Americans and international people who've gone over to fight in Ukraine. I know he was over in Ukraine for a while himself. He interviews people about kind of their battle stories and what they went through and what's going on the ground over in Ukraine. But he's also kind of a realist. So, you can tell that he supports Ukraine. Obviously he was over there. But at the same time, he will ask people he interviews. He's like, look, Russia's bad, we support Ukraine, but, we can't ignore the fact that, for years and years and years, Ukraine has been the most corrupt country in the world. And we can't ignore that. That's a reality. And he's asking people, are you seeing, weapons and support that the U.S. gives to Ukraine, being sold on the black market or stolen by criminals? Or, is this aid being stolen by politicians? And pretty much all of them say yes. You'll have weapons come in the front door, go out the back door, and they're being sold on the black market. So if you're interested in kind of getting a realistic view of what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, he seems like he has an interesting channel. We have recent polls showing that Americans do not want Donald Trump or Joe Biden in 2024. It seems like all of us are kind of fed up with the two-party system and the choices of politicians that we get. You can either get a turd or diarrhea. Neither one is really a good choice. Kind of along the same lines, we are hearing that Bernie Sanders may try to run in 2024. I think Bernie will be like over 80 at that, or I don't know, maybe not. At least mid-70s, late 70s. He may be 80. I forget how old he actually is. But I think people are sick of these, 70 and 80-year-old politicians who aren't going to have to live with the consequences of the decisions that they make. We've been starting to hear about the great wealth transfer. Baby boomers are the largest and richest generation. We constantly hear stories about how millennials and even Gen Xers don't have nearly as much at the same age that boomers had when they were our age. We've recently learned that a recent survey came out and found that over half of millennials expect to receive an inheritance from their parents. Most expect $350,000 or more. In reality, most can expect under $250,000. So there's kind of a disconnect in how much of inheritance people expect to get from their parents. I thought this is kind of grim that people are kind of like looking forward to, or relying on their parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles to die just so that they can have a good life. That's kind of dark. There was an article about this, December 9th on CNBC, if you guys want to check it out. But it kind of reminded me of the disconnect with Gen Z or Zoomers and their salaries. And a couple, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we did a video about how the average Zoomer or Gen Zer coming out of college is expecting to make something like $107,000. And in reality, they can the realistic expectation of their salary coming out of college is like $57,000. The biggest disconnect with journalism majors who expected to make $108K, and are more than likely to make $43K. So, Fortune recently did an article titled, "They Won't Be Home for the Holidays." If you guys search Fortune, "They Won't Be Home for the Holidays," you should be able to find it. The article is basically about how millennials are choosing to eat grilled cheese and stay at home eating grilled cheese and watching Netflix with their dogs and cats, instead of attending holidays like Christmas or Thanksgiving with family. The reason it gave was millennials find it, and this is a quote, millennials find being with family and attending holidays to be quote unquote triggering, and upsetting. They kind of go on to talk about how the divide is caused by politics and COVID. And I've talked about kind of this trend in some recent videos. It seems like a lot of these kind of social things that used to kind of bring us together and tie us together as a society are kind of falling away, right? Like this year we learned that half of Americans were not going to buy candy for Halloween. And it's like, when I was growing up as a kid, you might have one or two Grinch families or old people who couldn't afford to buy candy or couldn't get out to buy candy. But almost everybody participated in Halloween. We're seeing less connections between families, not as good relationships between families. There just really isn't the stress on the importance of family and kind of being with your loved ones and having relationships with family. And I think that's kind of a bad thing for society, and kind of a sad thing for individuals as well. Every Christmas movie and a holiday movie since the beginning of time, kind of has like little jokes and kind of makes fun of how terrible it is spending Christmas with your family. One of my favorite Christmas movies is, that movie Four Christmases with, Reese Witherspoon and, Vince Vaughn, and it's kind of all about how terrible it is spending the holidays with your family, but then kind of at the end, everybody kind of winds up getting along with their family, and the message is family's important. Another one of my favorite holiday movies, and here's some holiday movie suggestions if you guys want some. One of my favorite holiday movies is The Family Stone. That's a really good one. Owen Wilson's brother, I forget his name, is in it. And then there's another movie that I talked about in another video recently. It's very similar to The Family Stone, but it's about a Puerto Rican family, from Little Village or around Little Village in Chicago. And everybody kind of coming home for the holidays. But kind of the message of all these movies are that family is difficult, family can be a pain in the ass, but family is important. And this is kind of like a very Reddit attitude, like I hate people, I hate my family, I just want to stay at home and be a Grinch. But I thought it was interesting that Fortune did a story about that. We've in another story, half of millennials say weddings and social events are getting in the way of their money goals. At times it can feel like every weekend there's somebody's birthday, somebody's this, somebody's that. We got to get a gift for this person's christening, a gift for that. I get it. I think it's also kind of gotten crazy. Like, in this day and age, it seems like a bachelor party is no longer like, let's go out to a bar or let's go out to a strip club. It's, let's take a trip to Fiji. Let's take a trip to Cancun. It's like everybody's bachelor party has to be like some big out of the country or out of state expensive event. And if you have numerous friends getting married, A, who has that much vacation time? B, who has that much money to go on 3 or 4 vacations that aren't even your primary vacation for the year? And that's on top of the wedding and all the expenses that come along with a wedding. But, millennials are saying that weddings and social events are getting in the way of saving and their money goals. Kind of jumping back to the stock market here. Yesterday, both the Dow and the NASDAQ closed up. Does somebody know something about what we're going to hear in terms of inflation numbers and what the Fed's going to do today? The CPI report gets released at 8:30 this morning, which I'm making this video at about 6:30 a.m. So just about, I was going to say 2 hours, but I guess in New York that would be 1 hour from now. Economists expect inflation to rise, or expect inflation rose, I should say, 0.3%. They're trying to turn this into good news. Imagine if like somebody with a tumor went into the hospital and they were like, your tumor grew bigger, but the good news is it could have grown even bigger, right? Like, that's not really what you want to hear. Inflation is up, and somehow the media and the Fed is trying to spin this into being good news. It's not good news. If we do get better than expected inflation numbers, even if inflation continues to rise, I can imagine that the market's going to rally on that news. But keep in mind, it is a sucker's rally. If you're grocery shopping, if you're out there Christmas shopping, you're noticing that things are much higher in price. I was grocery shopping this past weekend, and I was going to get some romaine lettuce, and it was over $7 for a little 2-pack of romaine lettuce. And we're not even, it wasn't even like organic romaine lettuce or some fancy romaine lettuce. It was over $7 for romaine lettuce. And I was almost going to bite the bullet and buy it just because I like to make these deconstructed Caesar salads where I grill chicken, Then I kind of use the romaine lettuce like a taco. And then I kind of sprinkle, some Italian cheese and, maybe some croutons and some Caesar dressing on top of it. When I looked, the lettuce was all wilted and stuff like that, but I was like, fuck man, $7 for two heads of romaine lettuce. And it turns out that apparently vegetable prices are up about 40%. Reason that I've seen given is that there's a drought in the Southwest. Let's see, I kind of hopped around, but fuel prices are down, but outside of that, everything seems to continue to going up in price. Let's see, there was a Daily Mail article recently about the price of veggies up 40%. And I guess that kind of makes sense because I was kind of wondering again why romaine was $7 the other day. We've got more Twitter files being released. The stories being all but ignored by the mainstream media, which is kind of crazy. The recent Twitter files dump was about the internal discussions among Twitter employees about banning Trump. We have all the inside emails, text messages, group messages, and it's pretty clear everybody basically agreed. And this is, some of the most liberal people out there, some of the people who hate Donald Trump more than anybody else out there, and they were saying, really Trump hasn't broken any rules, and then somebody else would be like, well, let's find a way to twist what he said into breaking a rule. And, so somebody talked, I guess he had said something about patriots, and they were like, well, Trump's calling people who are rushing the Capitol on January 6th patriots, and somebody else was like, look, he was clearly talking about the American people. He wasn't talking about people storming the Capitol being patriots. But through this big brainstorm, they were able to kind of make the case for why Donald Trump had violated Twitter policy. They decided to ban him, and then everybody was like celebrating, like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. This is making history. The president's been banned from Twitter. And so it's just kind of interesting to watch that internal dialogue between Twitter employees, which kind of brings us to the next story about censorship. So I talked about this one or touched on this one in a recent video. Libs of TikTok, which I guess is a TikTok account that kind of shows videos put out by okay, so let's say some city has like one of these like child drag shows or child drag book reading shows or whatever they are, drag story time. They'll take a video from drag story time where some trans woman, has her wiener out in front of kids or, has kids putting dollars into their G-string or, just like crazy shit. Nothing's being made up. Nothing's being edited. I mean, they're literally just posting videos from people on the left, and then people get up in arms and say that it's hateful. Well, Libs of TikTok has a Shopify store, and I guess they sell a lot of different goods, but one of the mugs that they sell says like, stop grooming my children or something like that. So there's a big uproar and a big debate over, does saying stop grooming my kids on a mug, is that hate speech? Is that hateful towards trans people? If so, some people are arguing that their Shopify store should be taken down. If not, it should remain up. I think we're getting into kind of scary territory when Shopify is going to be, either the arbiter of truth, or Shopify is basically going to make moral judgments on what stores should be allowed to stay up and what stores shouldn't be allowed to stay up. This is actually kind of a really interesting discussion because in the world of e-commerce, it used to be everybody wanted to own their store and control their store and control their platform, and we've kind of shifted to a model where everybody's, quote unquote, renting their platform. People don't want to have to deal with, hosting and web security and things like that. So they just use a service like Wix or Shopify or BigCommerce and let them handle things. The downside is if somebody doesn't like your store and wants to kick up a fuss, they can try to get these platforms to take you down. So thus far, Shopify has said that the Libs of TikTok store does not violate their terms of service. And it stayed up, but people are kind of trying to build like this grassroots movement to get people pissed off at Shopify and the Libs of TikTok store and kind of strong arm Shopify into taking down the store. I'd love to hear what you guys think, whether you agree or disagree with Libs of TikTok and their message. Do you think that Shopify should step in and shut down their store? Would like to hear your opinion. On to the next story. Let's see, I'm kind of hopping around here and this is a little bit hodgepodge, but, a lot of people, think that the U.S. economy may turn around. We don't make anything. We don't produce anything. I don't see us necessarily going back to a thriving economy. In other news, Elon Musk has has shadow banned the jet tracker. So if you guys remember a while back, people were starting to track the private jets of Elon Musk. and other famous individuals. Elon Musk got upset. I think Elon Musk offered the kid $5,000 to take down the profile or to stop tracking him. The kid said no. Well, now it's come out that Elon Musk has shadow banned the jet tracker. Elon Musk is a big proponent of free speech, but I guess if you upset him personally, maybe he's not so much for free speech. Apple is being sued by women who say that their Apple tags, or whatever they're called, are allowing stalkers to track women. I don't know if we talked about this in a previous video, but there's a Philly gas station that's kind of gone viral recently. They hired armed guards to stand inside and outside the gas station with AR-15s. That's how bad crime has gotten. It might be just outside of Philly, but it's around Philly. That's how bad things have gotten, that a gas station has to hire armed guards so that people don't, mob their store or steal or rob them or whatever else. We've kind of talked about this kind of recurring theme of lawlessness in the country, right? We're hearing from Target and Walmart that shoplifting is way up. They're going to have to close down stores. They're going to have to raise prices to deal with all the shoplifting and theft and everything that's going on. In cities like Seattle and Portland and Chicago and San Francisco, you can walk into a store and steal $1,000 worth of goods and nobody's going to arrest you or prosecute you. So it's just kind of another example of this lawlessness sweeping the country. Go buy yourself a gun. JP Morgan said they see stocks exploding if inflation is low. And this is what I mean by a lot of these mixed messages that we're getting. One day, Jamie Dimon saying, oh my God, this is going to be a recession like none other. And then, the very next day, he's talking about stocks exploding and a bear market coming to an end. The Federal Reserve is set to hike rates one more time in this last meeting, which is going to take place about a half hour from now, I believe. Let's see. Mortgage rates are currently at 6.33%. If we get another rate hike today, that likely means that rates will go above 7%. That also mean that HELOCs, credit cards, store credit cards are all going to go up as well. I believe right now the average credit card rate for a normal credit card is about 19%. Store credit cards have tipped over 30%. But again, all debt will go up. Auto loans, student loans, all types of debt. It is weird how I think for the past 3 to 4 weeks, mortgage rates have been going down. They were at one point over 7%. How is the government bringing mortgage rates down when rates continue to rise? It doesn't make any sense. I think that maybe the Fed is still buying 10-year bonds and manipulating the bond market, which is connected to mortgage rates. The Fed is shrinking the balance, but not enough. And, I think the Fed really wants to, the Fed and the government really want to keep the housing market propped up, because if the housing market crashes, everything crashes. Home builders are in trouble. Home builder stocks have been tanking. There are insane cancellation rates among signed contracts. Cancellation rates are absolutely crazy. And, just to give you guys kind of like a real world example of this. So, a good friend of mine, she had started building a house about a year and a half ago, or put money to build a house about a year and a half ago. At the time, rates were at like 3%. Well, as her house was being built, and obviously there's been all types of delays and things like that, but as the house is being built, rates continue to go up and up and up. And I think sometimes you can like pay a bunch of money to lock in a rate earlier, but essentially she wasn't going to be able to lock in a rate until about a month prior to her home being completed. So, we're seeing rates 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%. By the time it finally came to close on her house, I think she got a rate of like 6.8 something percent. Which basically doubles, maybe not quite doubles, but almost doubles the amount of her payment. And so she wound up choosing to go through with the purchase and buy the house anyway. And I think she's hoping that rates come down and eventually one day she'll be able to refinance. Rates likely won't be back to what they were anytime soon, but hopefully they could drop a couple of points. But get some of these cancellation numbers. And I guess the cancellation numbers would be people like her who decided, I'm not going to go through with the purchase. And in a lot of instances, I think they wind up losing the money that they put down from the start, which could be tens of thousands of dollars. In the Southwest, we have a cancellation rate of new home builds of 45%. That's pretty crazy. That's almost half of homes that people had planned to build. They're canceling on now, saying they don't want them. In the Northwest, it's 30%. In Southern California, it's 24%. In the Southeast, it's 19%. In the Northeast, it's 11%. And I couldn't find any rates for the Midwest. But these cancellation rates are unheard of. So credit card debt is at an all-time high. Savings rates are at an all-time low. 70% of people can't afford groceries. 40% of people are using coupons or buy now, pay later to buy groceries. Last month, 41% of small businesses couldn't pay their rent, and 50% of restaurants couldn't pay their rent. Peter Schiff recently came out and said that the real inflation is double the 7% that the government admits. I would actually argue that it's probably 3 times more than the government admits, maybe even 4 times when you look at certain categories of goods. The Fed kept interest rates at 0 for a decade, did crazy money printing, gave money away to able-bodied people and businesses who didn't need the money during COVID. The market's been propped up for a while, but it will eventually fall. A lot of people say, Peter Schiff and a lot of these doomers and gold fags and everything, a lot of these guys are constantly calling for a crash that never comes. They say things like even a broken clock is right twice a day, but the government, the Fed, has been propping up the economy for a long time, and eventually they won't be able to prop it up any longer. And everybody's going to feel pain. Sam Brinton, Biden's Deputy Assistant Secretary for Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition, I guess it's like a nuclear energy position, he has left the Biden administration. You guys may or may not have heard about this story. He was fired for stealing people's luxury luggage at airports. So when he was going through airports, if he saw a bunch of Louis Vuitton luggage, he would go over, steal the bags, take them home. I think sometimes he kept the clothes, sometimes he threw the clothes away, but he was stealing luggage worth thousands of dollars. Initially, it came out, there was one story about this, but I believe he's been caught on video 2 to 3 other times stealing people's luggage. When the police asked him about it, he said, I was really tired, I didn't realize. But on both these trips, at least 2 of these trips, he didn't even travel with luggage. So it's not as if he mistook his luggage for somebody else's. He didn't even bring luggage, but went to the baggage carousel, found Louis Vuitton luggage, and just wound up stealing it. I think that's kind of an example of, he was qualified in the sense that I think he had a degree in like nuclear energy or whatever from MIT or something like that. I think he actually had 2 degrees. So in that sense, he was qualified. But did he have like the moral character and the integrity to do a job like that? When we hire people simply for their sexual orientation, things typically don't wind up working out too well. Look at Mayor Lori Lightfoot in Chicago. Look at numerous other examples of people being hired because they're in a popular demographic or a demographic that we're really cheerleading, and then they wind up not necessarily being a great candidate. Barclays has warned of a luxury recession. The article I saw about this was actually pay-gated, but I think the idea behind this being that initially it was the lower class and middle class who were struggling, but the wealthy people still had money and were still buying expensive purses and boats and cars and everything else. But eventually, this inflation and this recession, and I would argue we're in right now, it's starting to hit the wealthier people, and there's going to be a recession of luxury goods as people cut back. Here's something that's really fucking crazy. California recently did something called the MCTR, or the Middle Class Tax Refunds. This is actually a stimulus check. California is issuing stimulus checks at the same time that we know stimulus checks are the cause of inflation. California has a $24 billion budget problem, a deficit problem, and people making between $75,000 and $125,000 will get money. Also, people making $150,000 to $200,000 will get free money as well. Obviously, the less you make, the more money you get. Nobody's really getting that much money. To be eligible, the only thing that you have to have done, or the only qualification is, since 2020, you had to have lived in California for 6 months. Now, I'm picking on California here, but there are also 19 other states doing this. How does inflation go back to 2% when 20 different states are sending out stimulus checks? And what's the point of giving somebody who makes $200,000, somebody who makes almost $250,000 a year, you're going to give them $250. Like, what is that going to do besides make the current inflation and California's budget problems even worse? Somebody making $200K, either they don't need $250, or if they do need $250, it's still not going to make a meaningful difference in their life. CNBC says consumer inflation cooled in November, but is still high. And then just kind of last thing, I've seen a lot of people online talking about like, if the US dollar collapses, that means none of us will be responsible for our debts. Now, we've seen this happen before. The Weimar Republic, Venezuela, Lebanon, Turkey, other countries have faced currency crashes, and it's not a good thing. It doesn't make your life better. It doesn't mean your debt is wiped out. We've seen articles this week about in Venezuela, people are shaving flakes or grams off of gold coins to pay for haircuts and groceries and other things that they need. I think this is kind of a good example of why gold and silver have value. You know, when everything loses value and the currency crashes, people are still using gold and silver. And in fairness, in Venezuela, people are using Bitcoin as well in the Lightning Network. But I think that's kind of all the stories that we have for you guys today. We're wrapping this one up in about 30 minutes. As always, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, opinions, and comments, so go ahead and drop a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below and ring the bell, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.